Hey, what's up everybody, this is Muth24, and today I'm going to be taking a look at Darker Than Black, Gemini of the Meteor, which is a sequel series to Darker Than Black, which is one of my all-time favorite anime series. This series is not nearly as long as the original. The original ran 16 episodes, and this one, I believe, runs 12 episodes. The thing with this particular collection, and this is, I believe, something of a limited edition or a limited run, this version here with the box, is that you have this outer box that will accommodate the original series, so you can slide both of them in there and house them in this really nice display box, if you will. Mine's peeling a little bit on the top, but for the most part it's a pretty well-built container. So on the front here you have Hay in his, quote, drunken hobo appearance, as some people like to call him. This series is set, I believe, a year or 2 years after the original, and Hay's kind of fallen into this depression and isn't eating well, is drinking a lot, and just is sort of a shell of his former self. And I'll get more into the plot in a minute here. But so there's him on the front there. You got the Darker Than Black logo along the side, and then on the back you have Hay and Yin from the first season. And then you can, take a look inside there. There's nothing on the inside, but it does kind of wrap around there, which is nice. And I don't have the original release of the first season. I have the Anime Classics collection, as I did a review of earlier. But even with the slipcover on that, you can still slide it in there just fine, and also be able to accommodate for the Gemini the Meteor DVD Blu-ray combo pack there. And that's one thing that's really cool with this Gemini the Meteor collection is I believe it's standard for all of them, even if you don't have this limited version with the display box there, is that it's a DVD Blu-ray combo. And this was around the time that Funimation was starting to phase that in, where you had the DVD Blu-ray combo for approximately the same price as you would for the DVDs, which is really nice. I was kind of concerned when they started phasing that in that it was going to cost more, but it really hasn't, so that's cool. I don't have a Blu-ray player myself, that's why I was kind of concerned about it, but anyways, so here's the cover art with Suo, and she is, Suo, I'm sorry, she is a new character for this series. She kind of partners up with Hay, and she has some unique abilities of her own. She doesn't operate the same as a typical contractor does, and they explain why that is later on. But whereas Hay is able to, use electricity, she is able to basically spawn this giant, like, tank-busting sniper rifle out of her chest, and then she can use it for a limited period of time. The thing that's really interesting with Gemini the Meteor is that you have sort of this mix of old and new, and you have characters who return from the original series, not many of them, but you have Hay, and then you have a couple of the British intelligence people return, and then you have Misaki Kirihara. She's back because she's basically tracking Hay down. She wants to find out what happened to BK-201 after the end of the original series. And then you also have Yin in the series to a certain degree. Like, she's not as important. Well, she's still important, but she's not as prominent in this series as she was in the original one. But Mao is back, though he looks a little bit different. And there's just a lot of familiar faces that sort of ground it in, the events that came out of the original series. But then you've also got some new characters, some new contractors with really interesting abilities and interesting prices they have to pay for stuff, and some new kind of shady groups that are involved in the affairs of the contractors and stuff. So it's really sort of an everything old is new again sort of a feel about it. Pretty much everything from the original series plot-wise is all said and done, so it's a new storyline, even though you've got the same characters going in. It starts off in Russia, but eventually we will get back to Japan, where the original series took place. And that basically it starts in Russia because that's where Suo lives, and it's where Hay has sort of found himself wandering to in his, like, soul-seeking, if you will, or trying to figure out his purpose. Inside the DVD Blu-ray combo case here, we have an alternate cover, actually, if I can pop this back disc out. It's the same thing you have on the outside case there, which is why I chose the Suo cover art. But you do have a couple middle inserts here to flip open the discs, or flip through them. There's the first Was that the first DVD? Yeah, these are the DVDs. There's disc number 1 with some kind of cool art there. Discs number 2 and 3. And then here's the Blu-ray versions, discs 1 and 2. You do have a fair amount of extras with this, actually. You have some commentaries for episode 4, and then for the special OVA, and then you have the Texas openings and endings, and a few trailers there. But the thing is, with the OVAs that they include in this, it's like a little 4-part series, and it basically bridges the gap between seasons 1 and 2. It doesn't explain everything, but it's one of those things where you probably want to watch it after you've finished Gemini the Meteor, because there's some stuff in there that alludes enough to what happens at the end of Gemini the Meteor that it could be spoilers for you. But it is really well handled. Like, the original series had one little OVA special at the end that was basically just a laugh fest, if you will. It was a parody of everything that happened in the series in just one episode. But with this one, it's a serious, dark storyline, and that's really what I think I really like about this collection better than the original one. Like, I still like the first season of Darker Than Black better than Gemini the Meteor, but this DVD collection I think is better than the first seasons. Just everything that you get with it. But as far as the story, obviously it's shorter, but it's also more focused, I think. The original series did well to get from point A to point B, but it also had a few distractions along the way because it wanted to show, what cool powers these contractors could have, or, how the syndicate could operate behind the scenes and everything. And so it did take its time to develop a little bit more. This one does jump straight into things, assuming that you know more or less what happened in the original series. I do perform some flashbacks to the first season and kind of, explain, here's what happened to this character, whatever. But a lot of it's just, once they hit the ground running, and the ball gets rolling from there. There are some characters that I thought were really interesting in this series, specifically from the contractor side of things. There's also a couple characters that are more villainous characters, if you will, that I wasn't real hot on. Part of that's because, with it being a shorter series, I just don't have as much time to develop them. But the other part of it was that they were a little bit more, cliche bad guy-ish in their presentation, which, again, I think is a result of it being shorter. But I thought Suo was great. I thought Hayes' development in this series, it was really great, because you basically see him stripped of everything that he was in the original series and broken down into this, like I said, a shell of his former self. And so it's really cool to see him rediscover his purpose and stuff. Mao was a lot of fun to have back. I think my favorite character outside of Hay and Suo, though, has to be July. He's back in this series, and he's very funny. And it's one of those things where he's not being deliberately funny, or I don't think he is. Maybe later in the series he is a little bit, but because he's a doll, obviously he doesn't understand things in the same terms that humans do. But there's parts where they're trying to pass him off as a normal kid, and they force him to smile, and it just looks super awkward and goofy. And just his mannerisms, because he's so calculated and to the point. It's just really funny to have that sort of collide with the way that Hay and Mao do things, and the way that Suo's, this sort of kid that got thrust into the world of contractors and doesn't entirely understand it. So you have this really interesting dynamic with all the characters there. Hay and Mao were longtime partners together. Hay sort of becomes a mentor to Suo, and then you've got July there as something of comedic relief, but he's also incredibly helpful in the grand scheme of things. So, if you like the original series, I really highly recommend this. I know there's some people who kind of just passed it off as being a cheap cash-in of a sequel. I think it's really well done. I know it's not as good as the original series, at least in my opinion it's not, but it's still pretty well done. It's one of those things where they didn't want to force a whole new series, I feel, so they went ahead and were like, okay, let's make a 12-episode sequel and have it get from point A to point B faster, and just do it really well. And I think they did. The soundtrack is a little bit different than in the original series. I believe it's a different composer than Yoko Kanno, but I really like it. It's more electronic and sort of dark sound, but to me that's just fine. I think that actually works in some ways better for this setting. because it's in Eastern Europe for a lot of it, and then we go back to Japan, and it's sort of a post Fallout, if you will, of the whole world of contractors being exposed to the public. So, anyways, I highly recommend it. It's got a really cool case if you can find this version to put both seasons 1 and 2 into, and that's pretty much it for this review. So with that, I will see you guys next time.